So just don't forget that this is everything is exactly the same as you left it for the patient care report. So when we go in, those of you who are on the admin side, you should see possibly the QM reports, analytics, and admin. Those of you are only users and officers, etc., may very possibly only be seeing the EHR and the FIRE, and that's fine. So for our purposes today, we're going to go in on the FIRE side. And so those of you that are following along, if you are following along, that's fine. And if you'll just remember to pick something other than the report that I choose, just so we don't, I don't think that's going to cause any problems, but I just don't want to cause any slowdowns during the session. All right, we'll let this load up. We actually had a pretty good storm come through here and wipe out power for a couple hours, so wind and rain. So I don't know if you guys, I think y'all dealt with wind the other day. We had to cancel a session, so I know you guys have been busy. All right, so when we get into the FIRE side for you guys, for your NFIRS, fire incident reporting, there are 3 options for being able to input this information. And down here on the bottom in the gold where it says add, CAD, and EPCR import. Add is a generic add. Add is a blank report, has no apparatus specifications, and it has no specific details in it. So you're starting basically a blank report and basically building everything in from the ground up. Under CAD, which is where we'll function for all of this, we have the ability to go pull a report for a specific unit. So we can actually go in, pull CAD, and then we can actually filter by unit. And so we would actually be able to drill down in here and be able to specify you know, a specific apparatus that we're going to do, or look for a patient report or a CAD report. There are none right now for that particular apparatus. So one of the other options then is to also come in here and edit our search for the day. And so we can even come in here and specify that we just want to search for today's runs, and we want to look for, let's see, we did, I think, engine 24 earlier. And then when we select search, it should pull in all of our reports if we have any today, which looks like somebody's already been practicing today, so good for them. All right, there we go. So we've got one from 3.9 we'll go back to for engine 24. Since we took the date out, if you didn't notice, I just pulled the date span out and just looked for apparatus runs for engine 24. So now it takes me back as far as however many reports they happen to have. So that is a couple of the different ways to look for your reports. And then as you guys start getting into this, it'll become a little bit more fluid. But the easiest way for sure is to select your unit or to actually go into CAD, and from the CAD, and actually look those up, which no runs for right now. All right. So any questions so far on that? If not, we're going to drive on. I'm going to grab this one right here on Hagman. And Robert, as far as feeling free to chime in anytime if I miss something especially specific for you guys, please feel free. Real quick, starting for just a real quick tour, starting up in the left-hand corner, and I'm going to this is almost exactly like what you all were accustomed to when we were doing the training for the EHR. Up on the left-hand side is the option for being able to go back out to the main page, which is the home button. Next to that is the actual lock, which when we finish an NFIRS report and we're completely done and we have absolutely no, if you look down here in the bottom far right-hand corner, there's a validation issues. Once all of those validation issues are corrected, then we have the ability to lock the report. Now, just like in the EHR reports, you have the ability to add exposures instead of patients. We have the ability to add exposures, and as you build in those exposures with the plus symbol here, those will start to list down below. And so essentially what is this beginning of the report, starting out the main basic report once we go to fire, and then if we need to add exposures, we can do that here, and those will list 00, I think it goes 001, 002, up to whatever that needs to be. Next to that is the ability to do attachments, much like what you've seen before. And so if you take a picture, have paperwork, any type of data that would need to be attached. And Robert, do you have a list of things already that they might already kind of be able to reference for their attachments? I meant to ask you that. I apologize.
No, sir.
Okay, so if they do though, if you guys had a picture or something that was relevant to be added in here, and that may be something used on the backside by somewhere in investigations or somewhere along those lines, they'd be able to do that. Next to that is going to be your CAD notes, which allows you to go in and actually reference CAD notes. And right now, we are working on the times and why they're not tracking over as well. So I know that's being looked at. From there, the ability to print your NFIRS report when it's completed for a paper copy. And then, of course, the ability to X out completely, which obviously is a dangerous button. What you should know, though, is that this is auto-saving as you're doing your reports. So if you're working and all of a sudden, for some reason, have a power outage, get a run, lose connectivity, or have any other issues of that sort, everything you've done up to that point will be saved. So you should have no issues with being able to work through a report. And if you have to leave and come back, just note that you'll go through and search for that report and it will be saved in order just like you had before. So I noticed we had a couple of crews just join us. Thanks, guys. And just note that right now we are recording and for future training purposes. So if you have any questions, please feel free to pop those down either by chat or just chime in. Just remember to keep your phone on mute or your computer on mute so that we don't get any background noise. All right, from there, we're in our first report. You'll notice we have the basic part 1 and a basic part 2 for our fire reporting. I know you guys kind of run those wonderful scenarios with natural gas odors, and that's always a good one. So we'll build this one as kind of one of those frequent, if you will, type of calls. And so with that, the incident number, because you brought it in from CAD, will automatically populate. Should you have to actually create one of the generic reports, like in the beginning where I showed you that you had that option for just creating or adding a report, you could actually, after you get started, and let's just say for some reason Lucas County had an issue and CAD wasn't functioning, and then all of a sudden, you get notified or you decide to go check to see if your report's available, you'd actually be able to come in here and pull that incident up by going into CAD, finding that report number, and then being able to import all of the data. So the incident number, the address, and then of course the times that are associated with it, so you don't have to do those all manually. So even if you had to start a report from scratch, eventually if that CAD information became available, you would have access to that and be able to import it. Don't worry about the NFIRS number. That's a different background type number that'll automatically populate without you having to do anything, as far as I'm aware. From there, if you'll start to notice as we go down through here, incident date, and just confirming that you're working with the proper incident date. Obviously today's the 10th and this incident occurred on the 9th, so I do have to pay attention to that because that will automatically create some errors for me. As we move through this, you'll notice in the top right hand corner of any of these that have the red bar, these are going to be ones that are required. So if you're paying attention to the red marks or even the red corners, it's one of those you can work through. Several different options for being able to move through this and kind of move through it quickly depending on what you're doing is you can actually, once you start working in certain sections, you can tab through and move to the next. You can also just directly click and take you in. Each one of these also has a couple of options for being able to seek out what you're looking for within those drop downs. One is to open it up and to actually go through specifically into the area that you're looking for. You can also use text identification to do that. Again, that's one of those that you have to be, kind of attentive to. But regardless, let's go with the natural gas odor, and let's say that we're going down around the, we'll do the Woodlawn Cemetery area. Even though this report's probably not going to be down there. It's kind of one of those general areas where you don't have a specific structure. Maybe it's just an open field type scenario or graveyard or whatever cemetery. And so we're going to do 671 for a hazmat release with no hazmat because we had a natural gas smell, but we weren't able when we got there. We'll talk through that here in just a minute. From there, the other thing we have to populate is our shift. Let's see, yesterday would have been C. And then we come down through here, none of the district stuff was required. Now, just a note, you don't have to do this. It's just something that is a feature of ours. As you go through and see that you've kind of completed a section, which funny, I just noticed I missed one, action taken. So we're going to come in here in just a second and do that. But we do have an on-off button for those areas. So if you wanted to close it after you were done so that you knew you had completed it, it is an option for you to do. Some people use it, some people never touch it. So as we go through injury or death, as far as none, and then once we get over here to actions taken, first action taken, let's see if anybody wants to chime in, feel free, but typically we come in and we use the a detector for that area, and then once we've used the detector to determine if we have anything, let's go with investigate. So typically in the order based on smallest number first, so going in chronological order, first thing we did, obviously hazmat detection, investigation, and then if we wanted to add any additional, we'd be able to do so. Now that that one's done, like I said, if you wanted to, you could do that, and it just brings the next section up closer, but you don't have to. Now moving on down through here, we have none for aid given or received unless that actually occurred. Now getting into location types can be kind of interesting because it's one of those, I think I said graveyard, but let's see, cemetery doesn't pop up. What might be another name that you guys are accustomed to using for that? What would be a property use or type? Or location type?
The location. Yeah.
Oh, I'm in location. Sorry. Yep. No, I'm one off. My bad. So we're just going to go with in the general area of or in the intersection of, depending on how you guys do that when you're searching an area. Sorry, got a little off track there. So we can go with adjacent to or within that area of, and the property use then would fall into an outside or specialty use property. And you can notice as I start drilling in, at any point in time that I get down here and realize that I can't find something that meets what I'm looking for, then I can come back out and go into a different area. And then I also have the ability to, let's say that we were dealing with a cemetery, I could come in here and type in the word plots, and since they're more or less grave plots, whatever, and that would help us fill in graded care plots for the land, which would help us work with that. And then from there, we would come down and be able to start confirming our addresses and everything match up. And again, I think we talked a little bit about that when we did the EHR, that if you were to change locations or have a more specified location, whatever you tell dispatch is what should be in the CAD. So if you get in here and you see that it's not correct or that it didn't change or the address wasn't correct, just know that you might need to go back and update that. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Always kind of glance at that location address just to make sure that all that information transitioned over like it was supposed to. Robert, did you want to add anything on incident type or incident, any of that information for, not incident, but for the location or property uses or anything like that?
No, this is going good. Keep the flow.
All right. So with that said, we get down here to our dates and times. We'll want to confirm that our dates and times actually came into play like we had actually called it. I do know that we had a question in the earlier session. What if the arrival time didn't make it? Dispatch forgot to put it. The CAD went down. Please always note, and I'm hoping this is a short-term issue, but you would also be able to go back and reference your CAD notes to confirm your times, so that if there was any question or doubt whatsoever, you could go back in here and see either when you made your first size up, say when you arrived on scene and they forgot to give you an arrival time, but you checked on scene with the vehicle fully involved and that time is there with that, then you can kind of calculate in there, a couple of seconds before that or whatever to be able to go in and put your arrival times. And then from there, if you do have to acquire based on the type of incident, any person or entity data based on where you're at, you have the options for here as well as owner information. And then of course, when we get into some of our other examples here in a little bit, we'll talk about loss and about being able to put in your loss amounts, etc. Now this is basic one, and you'll notice once I finished all the required information, I got a green check mark. So that means that I've actually met all the requirements for this page and we're ready to move on to basic 2. Are there any questions so far on the basic 1 report? We actually, believe it or not, that was how fast and easy it was to move through a simple fire report on page 1. And then page 2 is really stuff y'all are already doing as far as assigning who the officer is and a narrative. So before I get to that, any questions on this page? I haven't checked to see, Robert, so if you help me stay up on that with the chat if anybody puts something there.
I have no questions.
Okay, thanks guys, appreciate it. All right, so in our basic 2 module then, this is the final portion of the simple report there. We're talking about our natural gas leak. Here we have our apparatus that pulled it in with our dispatch times. Two ways to solicit or put in your, to actually designate and put in your personnel. One is you can actually transition to the personnel and actually select add. Actually, let me go back. Didn't do that the way I wanted to do that. Let's go back in here and we'll go back to apparatus and we're going to select personnel. And when we get back in here, engine 24, it's a suppression apparatus. All of our times are there. Yep, so we're good. And then I would have the ability to come in here and start listing the personnel that were on that apparatus. And that does allow for a quick search based on personnel names. So that does help with this situation for being able to input that data. And it is fairly fast.
Hey, Chris?
Yes.
Why isn't CAD just dumping that data since we have to log on in the mornings anyway?
I agree, and I don't have the answer for that yet. I know that's something that they're working on because there are just so many different systems. I don't know why it doesn't do it yet, but I believe that it will one day, very soon. And for now, that's unfortunately, that's kind of where it's at for right now. I do agree that's a great idea, great option. Now the other option for inputting that as well is to go to the personnel quick search when you're here, and as you pull that up, I can actually go through by alphabet, by last name, and very quickly just select all the personnel that are assigned to that unit and add them in that way as well. And so that's also can be a quick way to go through. The quickest way will be when they get that link to be able to work with all of the different CAD systems. It's just one of those things. It's another one of those drill down issues with CAD links that just is difficult. But I don't see why it can't be done sooner than later. It's just time.
All right. Bob, are we going to be responsible for dumping those names in those rigs when we get to this section?
It's my understanding, yes. I think I can answer that one for him, is that you guys will be doing this for each apparatus that responds will be responsible for theirs, I think. So if you're doing your report, and that's the thing that if just from having to have had to do it, that is one of those when you get here, in the beginning it looks tedious. It does go pretty quick simply because of the text search, because it does allow you to just put in almost just first two letters and you're able to select, and it will be faster, absolutely, no questions asked. You are right. It will be faster if that will work. It's just right now that's not capability of the system.
All right, and just a quick comment on your small natural gas runs where you're only getting 1 or 2 rigs. That's fine and dandy, but when you're a battalion chief filling out the fire report and you've got 30 to 40 employees that you have to put in and transfer that from a piece of paper, it's a little bit more than tedious.
We're not going to make a battalion chief do that, Chief.
Oh, you're not? Well, how are you going to get the names in there then?
The option would be for the officer just to go into your report and add his crew in, because you have to take the place of a 214. But we're talking about that right now.
Okay, I'll shut up now. Thank you.
No, great question. Thank you. And actually, those are the kind of things that trigger good conversation. So that's awesome. Again, and that's what this is all about too. It's been great, and the reception, and obviously, unless it's asked, we can't try to address it. So you'll notice here that as we add apparatus and personnel, that automatically does your resource counts for you. So those should automatically be in place when you get to that screen. So then as we move on through, we get to the authorization, the report writer, whoever's writing the report. And so then we have I'm going to go ahead and just abbreviate suppression. And then today's date that I'm actually doing it today. Shame on me, I should have done it yesterday. And then I get down here, and if I'm the same, and if it's the officer in charge, just like anything else, I can just go ahead and hit copy report writer, and all that's going to populate in, so I don't have to retype that information again. Once I get from there, I then go to my narrative, and I think right now it's one of those where I think everybody has a kind of a format that they use. I'll simply show you one that seems like it's relevant. And let's see, March 10, 2017. Now, once I start typing, I then also have the ability, spell check's gonna kick in. If I want to add, if you're especially doing bullets, then you have the ability to do that. So sorry, I guess I can't talk and type at the same time. So again, these are the kind of things that we can enter into, and then if I need to shut it off for just a second and go back to normal text, I can, or I can just continue on going through, caller detail. And you'll notice that right off the bat, it's catching all of my spelling issues. So all I have to do is right click and then go in and repair. Or correct, and we can just continue on. And again, and then if I want to at this point, now you'll notice that I can come back in, turn off my bullet points, and then once I'm done, I hit save, and then I also have the ability to come back in and document which apparatus this was for. Or which apparatus notation that was for, and then hit save. So there we go. Me off engine 24, my notes, it's going to date and timestamp if I don't put it in there myself. And then of course the ability to go in and edit or delete. And then at that point, I should be able to come down here to the very bottom, and being that the narrative was the last thing I did, and I'd be able to note any validation issues. If I had any validation issues, I'd actually be able to track back, and as soon as I select those validation issues, each one that I select is going to take me directly back to where I left off the last time. So, or where I need to go fix it. Sorry, misspoke there, my bad. Any questions? And that is just a basic report. And now what I'd be able to do is I'd actually be able to come up here and document that, or lock that report, and I'd be complete, having met all the validation issues. I'm just glancing here, and so no questions, then we're going to drive on. Everybody's good? All right. So with that said, let's do a, Robert, do you have a desire for one specific right now? We can go through to the structure fire from here. We can do, we'll roll a structure fire one real quick, so because that'll open our fire, and then that'll also help us I can show you the casualty module as well. So at this point, we come back in here, and we're going to come down to incident type, and we're just going to go ahead and back this up, and we're going to go to fire, and we're going to go to structure and building, and then once we do that, you'll notice automatically the fire module opens up. And then we're going to come down, and so let's say this is smoke coming out of let's use I don't know if anybody's had one here lately, but we'll just use building fire and C shift. We'll go no injury or death. Actually, let's come back in here. And what I'm going to do here, not to get the cart before the horse, but I want to be able to activate the casualty tab so that we can demonstrate that for you guys, because it requires this to actually be added. Something that can be done in this is if you guys want to document guys exposures just to being at the structure fire, this could be a consideration. Also, if you were to have a civilian or a firefighter or anything else, you'd be able to document that here as well. So you kind of have that as an open range for a lot of different options, because there is the opportunity under the fire service side to do just a report of exposure and not necessarily an injury, etc. So there's a lot of options with this one. Just know that there's some fluidity with this as you guys go through. So we'll come over here under actions taken, and let's talk through what would be some of the actions y'all would want. I can tell you kind of what ours is, but what would you get simplistically? What would you guys be considering in this?
Extinguishment.
So we got extinguishment by fire service personnel.
Hey, can you go back to that action one, Chris? Show them that +1 code.
Yeah, okay, good. Under building
Oh,
fire under.
No, I was looking at the direct over here, a direct attack, but actually it says it's right there.
Yeah, the 11, it's 11-0. Okay, yeah, there we go. Direct attack.
Yeah.
So that's actually going to put that then just, and you guys probably already know this, but what that is, it's an extinguished by fire personnel and it actually then just is a +1 code of a direct attack. So that's just that much more specific. And then under your action 2.
How about salvage and overhaul?
Okay, so here's, oh great, I'm glad you said that, because now I'm standing here and I'm going, well shoot, I don't want to drill through all of these and find that, so I'll come up here and I'll type in SAL for salvage and overhaul, and automatically there I can find it that easy. I don't have to go digging through and searching through that if I don't want to. So is everybody good on the 2 ways to search through these drop downs? One is to directly visually go through each one and using the dark arrows to toggle back and forth, or I can actually come in and start typing what it is I'm looking for. And that'll guide me to that a little bit quicker, as long as I'm using the right terminology.
Let's do ventilation.
Okay, and then we can come in here and I can type in vent, and there's ventilation. So in the grand scheme of things, rather than sit there and be frustrated digging through it, I can actually just quick type and it will start drilling through all of those options for me until I find the one I'm interested in. Just be careful that like gas leak becomes one of those. I noticed that because that's one, you know, typically we type in gas leak and it's gas leak, but the one that we did before the example, that would be a primary example of that's really not the actual one we want. So we kind of have to also be attentive to that. And I think you had said, Robert, y'all were considering putting together some lists to help these guys drill through those a little bit faster so they have those numbers already ready to go so they don't actually, yeah, so you don't have to actually look through those. So hopefully that'll help you guys get through these reports a whole lot faster. Now with that said, we come down, we had no mutual aid given or received. Now we come down to the location type. Let's see. We go street address, and then what was the property use? What would be a property use that would be kind of out of the normal that we might have to dig for? Let's see if I can find laundry or dry cleaning. No. What else? I'm just messing, guys. I'm sorry. If anybody's got one that they want to see if it's in here or that they've had that was kind of a difficult one to register with, or Robert, if you've got one you want me to put in.
Nope.
Okay. Let's see. We'll do this one. We'll do 311. We'll do 24-hour nursing care, and these guys have a tendency to wash their rags and stuff, and when they do, we've had little smoke incidents with that before. So we might use that. We'll see if that'll meet all of our needs for structure fire and maybe even an exposure. So we come down here and we'll use the address that's listed. That's fine. Times we're not going to mess with. But now we get down here to property loss and actually estimated property loss. And Robert, this is one the guys will do in the field, estimated. And so if it's unknown, is an unknown an option? And then once you've got that, you'll notice that that basic fire report's done. And then our basic 2 is technically right now already done just based on the current numbers that we had plugged in. But as we add apparatus, that's the other thing to consider is as we start adding apparatus to this, this is where it will start to expand to other units with the other personnel, and then you guys figuring out how that's going to work best if you've got 6 pieces of apparatus in each one, putting in something for their individual, and then the overall narrative here, if that were a structure fire. You want me to go into that, Robert, type out another narrative?
No.
Okay. Any questions on that so far, guys, on the basic 1 before we move on to the fire report? Okay. So inside the fire report now, number of alarms, and just because that's where it started, but we come down here and you'll notice that the very first thing it wants to know, which actually I don't even think I have to put that, to be honest with you. So we come down here to area of origin, and let's see. Let's go laundry area, chute. You guys have two-story nursing home or multi-story nursing homes with the chutes?
Sure.
And heat source, let's go with natural heat source. Their cleaning supplies, and what first ignited it was General Materials. And we'll go with, let's go this. Or the regs. And then the cause of ignition, well, let's go unintentional. And factors contributing to the ignition were no, I don't want that. Let's see. We don't want to do a misuse, do we? It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So they mix their chemicals together. They put all their rags together to go wash them. And in the process of that, yeah, that'll work. Now, human factors would then be the next one that would be required. And if that was actually relevant, and if not, then a none. Now, equipment involved isn't required. Mobile property not required. Structural type. And we'll do enclosed building. Zero. Building status is in normal use. We'll go 15 by 15. We'll just make some numbers up here. And then story, a fire of origin, which was the first. Now fire spread, and it was going to be confined to the room of origin. And this is when we got into a good discussion with, is this, Robert, do you want me to cover that with the error that we had earlier? Or are you worried about that one? Engine 23 got to run. So go ahead.
No, that's all right. We'll cover it during QA and when they get runs and stuff.
Okay. And then as far as at that point, we do know that this, and I'll go ahead and just touch on it, that the items contributing most to the flame spread is an option here. And if it's forgotten, it's forgotten. It's one that we typically have to go back to, but it could be, any number of options here for the fact that it was an organic materials, or it could be that it was the cleaning materials or just general materials. So just know that that's one of those questions that does come up on the infers and can be a kickback as far as, let's see, I was looking for bedding or linen other than bedding. Yeah, there we go. And let's see. All right. Not to get too caught up in this one. All right. So up to this point, everything's very straightforward. If you do end up with anything that's out of the normal, then obviously being able to drill in. I do know that there is the option for you guys to have the +1 codes. So if you do get to some of those scenarios where you're trying to be more specific about what you guys are doing or how it's being done, don't hesitate to push those up the chain. Robert has the ability to add or whoever else in there has the ability to add the +1 codes if they're needed in certain areas, so don't hesitate. Then we get into, as usual, our presence of detectors and the ability to document whether they were present or not. And then, of course, as we make selections, we're going to see that progressive kind of disclosure where more options then pop up. So was the detector in operation, detector operated, detector type, combination smoke and heat. I meant to look. No, not. Okay, whether it was monitored or not. And then Yeah, hardwired with battery backup and effectiveness. Detector alerted occupants and occupants responded by calling. And then was there an automatic sprinkler system? And that would be either not present, or partial, depending on what the system holds or what their needs are. And obviously, depending on what you select here, then it's going to actually ask for additional details if they actually activated the sprinkler heads and if not. And then if you'll notice, after we got down to the bottom going through all of those required fields, we then have our check mark stating that we've met the expectations. And then from there, we have our casualty form. And with the casualty form, we have the ability to go in and add personnel for, we'll do this one as just, I'll just throw this one in there as a, we fought fires. So I know this is one that some agencies use, have the ability to go in and document the date of the fire and the time. Let's see. Show you how well it works here on the times. I can go back out here, reference my times real quick. 13/3/25. And then I can come down here under severity, and this is a report only. And then that date of birth and injury time. Oh, that's right, the date. Almost got me again, Robert. There we go. Now I was put today's date instead of the date of the incident. All right, so that kind of gives you an idea of what the casualty looks like with the ability to dig in and actually put in additional information as far as the type of injury, physical conditions, and all of the typical information on an injury report. And that kind of opens that door for, as well as being able to document specific equipment, protective equipment failures or issues, and then any remarks specific to that should you have a line of duty injury. And that gets us back to, you'll notice we're back to 0 validations. And then we'd be able to lock. Now, if this fire were to expand, and let's just say that it, moved over to another vehicle or another building, or an exposure to one side or the other, or something we were classifying as an exposure, then we would actually just come up here and we would hit the plus button. And just like with the EHR, it's going to ask, are you sure you want to do that? And so you would say yes, because it wants you sure you want to add an exposure. And when you do, then we would have the ability to come back up in here. And again, it's given us almost a generic, but we would have the ability to then go through and now add the details relevant to. Sorry, pull in that CAD information so that we get all of our times. So now when I hit that CAD button, I should get the address, yeah, and I should get my times. And so now I simply work through this for the exposure and be able to go through and document what happened as far as the exposure goes. Do you want me to go through the full report, Robert, or you think that's enough for the?
That's good.
Okay. Guys, any questions so far? It's kind of quiet over there.
I know there's probably questions on how we're going to do this exposure reporting. We've asked a request from ESO to make it easier for us, but right now it's in discussion. But it does seem like I don't want to say right moving in the proper direction to start having an exposure for each person on the fire department with the ability to ensure that it's being done. But that's it for, I mean, unless anybody's got some questions or wants some discussion, that's it for the how to use the software for the NFIRs.
Damon, I have one. Are the rigs not coming over either in that in the data dump? we have to add the rigs as well to the incident?
You should.
Yeah, so the engine 24 should have been there since I started that report under engine 24. What won't be there when you come to the apparatus page won't be the personnel. That'll be what you'll have to go back and add. And I think that's what...
The rig should show up.
But the rig did show up, yes, sir. So when you come
Okay,
in on that
right.
side, your rig's there. And then if you happen to add, or if it's not there, let's just say worst for whatever reason, then yes, you would select add. And what you get when you select add would allow you to do all of it at one time, unfortunately. Unfortunately, if you want to look at it that way, I'd be able to put in the apparatus real quick, put in our personnel, and then hit add, and it would be done. So while it is kind of a pain if you had to do it, it also just opens it up so you don't see it, then have to go into it and do it kind of stuff. But yeah, no, it should be there. It should track in from the incident from CAD.
All right, thank you.
Good question. All right. Anybody else?
All right, I think we're done.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.